Today's story is Mafia boss came home early. He couldn't believe what his triplets nanny was doing. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. If you believe the smallest acts of compassion can change even the hardest hearts, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss another story of dignity, kindness, and unexpected human connection. Thank you for being here and for supporting these stories. Now, let's begin today's story. What have you been doing with my children? Vincent Moretti's voice cut through the upstairs hallway like a blade. But Danielle Brooks didn't hear him. Not yet. She was behind the closed door at the end of the corridor, and Vincent, one of the most feared men in Chicago, stood outside it with one hand frozen inches from the brass handle. He wasn't supposed to be home. His black sedan had rolled through the iron gates less than 10 minutes earlier, almost 24 hours before anyone expected him. A negotiation in New York had ended abruptly, and Vincent had chosen not to warn the household. Usually, someone met him at the entrance. Tonight, nobody did. The Moretti mansion seemed strangely still beneath the gray afternoon light. Rain traced thin, silver lines down the towering windows. Vincent crossed the marble foyer, removed his charcoal coat, and immediately noticed something else. No children. Normally, 5-year-old Ethan could be heard racing toy cars across the hardwood. Noah would be somewhere nearby, quietly correcting his brother. And Lily usually watched from a distance. Always watching, rarely laughing anymore. Vincent's jaw tightened. Rebecca? No answer. Then he heard it. A sound from upstairs. 3 small voices. Vincent stopped at the foot of the staircase. He knew those voices better than his children probably realized. Since their mother's death 11 months earlier, he had learned to recognize Ethan's anger, Noah's silence, and Lily's midnight crying through walls thick enough to stop bullets. But this sound was different. They were speaking together. Vincent climbed the stairs slowly. The men behind him remained downstairs without being told. Nobody followed Vincent Moretti into the private wing unless invited. Halfway down the corridor, he heard another voice. Danielle, the new nanny. His expression hardened. Danielle Brooks had been hired 3 weeks earlier with explicit instructions. Keep the triplets safe, maintain their schedule, and never interfere with private family matters. Yet all 3 children were apparently gathered behind a door that should have been empty at this hour. Vincent approached silently. Then he heard Lily. Do you think she can still hear us? Vincent stopped. Something cold moved through his chest. Danielle answered, but too softly for him to catch the words. Then Ethan spoke. Daddy says we're supposed to be strong. Vincent's fingers curled. Silence followed. Not ordinary silence. The kind that made a man feel as though something on the other side of the door might change the meaning of everything he thought he understood. He reached for the handle. Then Noah said something that made Vincent freeze. Don't tell Daddy. It makes him sad. For one terrible second, Vincent forgot how to breathe. His own children were keeping something from him, and their nanny knew. He pushed the door open. 3 little faces turned toward him. Danielle spun around. Her beautiful, gentle face drained of color, and Vincent Moretti stared at what she had been doing with his triplets. For the first time in years, the Mafia boss had no words. 11 months earlier, the Moretti mansion had sounded like a home. There had been laughter in the breakfast room, tiny shoes abandoned beneath expensive furniture, and the soft voice of Claire Moretti reminding 3 energetic children that marble staircases were not racetracks. Then Claire died, and the house learned silence. Vincent never discussed that night. Not with his men, not with the staff, certainly not with his children. He did what powerful men did when confronted by something power could not reverse. He built walls around it. Within weeks, the mansion became a fortress of schedules and specialists. A child psychologist came every Tuesday. A private tutor arrived every morning. Security guards watched every entrance. Meals appeared precisely on time. Vincent could protect Ethan, Noah, and Lily from kidnappers, enemies, hunger, cold, and almost every danger money could identify. Grief was different. It entered without permission. Ethan fought it. At 5 years old, he had developed a temper too large for his little body. He kicked doors, threw toys, and screamed whenever anyone mentioned his mother. Enough, Vincent would say firmly. Ethan would become quiet. Vincent mistook that silence for strength. Noah disappeared inside himself. He stopped asking questions, stopped running toward his father when Vincent returned from meetings. At dinner, he pushed food around his porcelain plate until someone finally carried it away. Vincent hired a nutritionist. Nobody asked Noah why eating had become difficult. And Lily remembered everything. Her mother's perfume, the songs Claire sang while brushing her hair, the exact place she sat at the long dining table. For months, Lily refused to let anyone use that chair. One evening, a housekeeper moved it. Lily screamed until her voice broke. The chair was returned. After that, nobody touched it. Vincent began eating in his study. He told himself it was because business demanded his attention. The truth was simpler. He could not look at the empty chair. By the time Danielle Brooks arrived, 6 nannies had already come and gone. Some had been intimidated by Vincent. Others couldn't manage Ethan's anger. One lasted 4 days after Noah locked himself inside a closet and refused to come out. Rebecca Sloan, the head housekeeper, had stopped expecting anyone to stay. They need structure, she told Danielle on her first morning. Danielle stood beneath the enormous chandelier in a plain navy dress, listening carefully. She was 30, plus size, with warm dark skin, soft natural curls pinned behind her head, and a beautiful, gentle face that seemed almost out of place in a house built around intimidation. Mr. Moretti values discipline, Rebecca continued. Meals on schedule. Bedtime at 8. No unnecessary questions about their mother. Danielle's eyes lifted. No questions, especially about their mother. Something passed across Danielle's face. Not defiance, concern, but she nodded. Her first meeting with the triplets lasted less than 3 minutes. Ethan looked her up and down. You'll leave. Rebecca stiffened. Danielle didn't. Maybe, she said softly. Ethan seemed surprised. Noah stared at the floor. Lily studied Danielle's face. When what, sweetheart? When will you leave? The question landed differently. Danielle crouched, so she wasn't towering over them. I don't know, she answered. But if I ever have to go, I won't disappear without telling you. For the first time, Noah looked up. Across the room, Rebecca's lips tightened. Danielle had broken no rule. Not technically, but she had already done something the Moretti household had forgotten how to do. She had answered a frightened child honestly. And somewhere behind the walls of that enormous mansion, 3 children had begun deciding whether this woman was safe enough to trust. By the end of Danielle Brooks's first week, she had learned something the specialists had missed. The Moretti triplets were not difficult children. They were grieving children who had become experts at hiding grief from adults. Ethan tested her first. He knocked a glass of orange juice onto the breakfast table and stared directly at Danielle as the liquid spread across the white linen. Rebecca inhaled sharply. Ethan Moretti. Danielle simply reached for a towel. Accidents happen. It wasn't an accident, Ethan said. Danielle paused. The boy lifted his chin, almost daring her to punish him. Okay, she said. Then you can help me clean it. His confidence faltered. You're not mad. I didn't say that. For half a second, something almost resembling amusement touched Noah's face. Danielle noticed. She noticed everything. She learned that Ethan became angry whenever adults made promises using the word forever. She learned Noah ate better when someone sat beside him without watching his plate. She learned Lily hated having her hair brushed by strangers because Claire had done it every morning. Danielle never forced her. Instead, she placed a brush on the vanity. If you ever want help, I'm here. 3 mornings later, Lily silently carried it to her. Small victories. That was how Danielle worked. No grand gestures. No demands for affection. Just patience. Rebecca disliked it. You're becoming too familiar, she warned one afternoon. Danielle was kneeling beside Noah, helping him repair a cardboard airplane Ethan had accidentally crushed. They're children. They're Moretti children. Danielle looked up. To grief, I don't think that makes much difference. Rebecca's expression cooled. Danielle returned to the airplane. She had learned long ago that kindness did not require permission. The real turning point came at dinner. The dining room glittered beneath crystal chandeliers. Silverware gleamed beside plates prepared by a private chef. Yet 3 5-year-olds sat in silence. At the far end of the table was the empty chair. Claire's chair. Lily kept looking at it. Rebecca noticed. Perhaps we should remove it. Lily's spoon struck the plate. No, Lily, no. Ethan stiffened. Noah lowered his eyes. Danielle saw the panic spreading before anyone else did. She walked toward the empty chair. Rebecca whispered sharply, "Don't." Danielle stopped beside it. For a moment, everyone watched her. Then she crossed to a vase near the window, removed one small white rose, and returned. She placed it gently on Claire's empty plate. Nothing more. Lily stared at the flower. "What's that for?" Danielle's voice softened. "For someone you still love." Rebecca looked horrified. "We do not encourage this." Danielle kept her eyes on Lily. Remembering someone isn't the same as refusing to move forward. The room went silent. Then Noah picked up his fork. Ethan followed. Finally, Lily took a bite. It was the first dinner in months that all 3 children finished together. Danielle never told Vincent. Neither did Rebecca. But from the doorway, the head housekeeper watched Lily smile faintly at the white rose. And something harder than disapproval settled into Rebecca Sloane's eyes. Because the nanny who was supposed to remain invisible was becoming important. Not through money, not through authority, through something far more dangerous in the Moretti mansion. Trust. The first time Danielle discovered the children's secret, it was 2:17 in the morning. She had awakened to footsteps. Not adult footsteps, small ones. Danielle sat upright in the guest room beside the nursery wing and listened. Top. Pause. Top. Then silence. She slipped on her robe and opened the door. 3 shadows moved down the corridor. Ethan, the shadows froze. Lily turned first, clutching something against her chest. "You're supposed to be asleep," Danielle whispered. "So are you," Ethan replied. Under different circumstances, she might have smiled. Instead, she noticed Noah's bare feet trembling against the cold floor. "Where are you going?" Nobody answered. Then Lily tightened her arms around what she was carrying. A framed photograph. Claire Moretti. Danielle's expression softened. She could have called Rebecca. She could have returned them to bed. Those are the rules. Instead, she followed. The triplets led her into a small sitting room at the end of the private corridor, a room Danielle had never seen them use. Lily placed the photograph on the carpet. Noah disappeared behind an armchair and returned with a shoebox. Inside were 3 folded pieces of paper. "What are those?" Danielle asked. "Letters," Noah whispered. "To Mommy," Lily added. Danielle's heart tightened. Ethan immediately looked defensive. "We know she can't read them." Danielle lowered herself onto the carpet. "I wasn't going to say she could." That answer seemed to matter. Lily unfolded her letter. It contained mostly drawings, 4 stick figures beneath a yellow sun. One figure had wings. "Every Thursday," Noah explained. "Mommy died on Thursday." Danielle glanced at the clock. The children had been waking in secret every week. "Alone. How long have you been doing this?" "Since Daddy stopped talking about her," Ethan said. There was no accusation in his voice. That made it hurt more. The following morning, Rebecca found Danielle returning the photograph to its shelf. Her face hardened when Danielle explained. "This ends tonight." Danielle turned. "Why?" "Because Mr. Moretti has been very clear. The children need stability, not midnight rituals feeding unhealthy attachments. They're 5. Exactly. They're grieving." Rebecca stepped closer. "You were hired to follow instructions." Danielle's voice remained quiet. "And I was hired to care for them. Those are not always the same thing." That Thursday, Danielle made a choice. At 2:10 a.m., she was already waiting. The triplets appeared in the hallway and stopped when they saw her. Ethan frowned. "Are you telling?" "No." Danielle held up 3 envelopes. "I thought your letters deserved somewhere safe." That night, she changed the ritual. They still brought Claire's photograph. They still wrote to her. But afterward, Danielle asked each child to name one thing they wanted to do before the next Thursday. Noah wanted to finish his airplane. Ethan wanted to learn to swim without floaties. Lily wanted to eat pancakes with Daddy. Danielle wrote each answer beneath their letters. "Why?" Lily asked. "Because missing someone shouldn't stop you from loving the life that's still here." None of them spoke. Then Lily leaned against Danielle's soft shoulder. Noah followed. Ethan resisted longest. Eventually, he sat beside them. Danielle closed her eyes. She knew Vincent Moretti might fire her if he discovered this. She knew Rebecca was watching more closely, but she also knew something no rulebook could explain. The children were finally talking about tomorrow, and Danielle would rather lose her job than teach them that healing required forgetting yesterday. Vincent Moretti had faced armed men without blinking, but nothing had prepared him for the sight beyond that door. Danielle sat on the carpet beneath the warm glow of a single lamp, her soft figure surrounded by his 3 children. Claire's photograph rested in the center of the circle beside a wooden box filled with envelopes. Ethan held a folded letter. Noah had a blue crayon between his fingers, and Lily was curled against Danielle's side, one small hand resting trustingly in hers. Nobody moved. Danielle's beautiful face lost its color. Mr. Moretti. Vincent stepped inside. His eyes moved from the photograph to the letters, then to Danielle. What is this? His voice was quiet. That was when Vincent was most dangerous. Danielle slowly stood. Lily immediately grabbed her hand. Vincent noticed. Something inside him tightened. I asked you a question. Danielle swallowed. We were talking about their mother. The words struck harder than they should have. Vincent's jaw hardened. You were instructed not to interfere with private family matters. I know, and yet here you are. Yes. No excuses. No trembling apology. That irritated him more. Vincent looked toward Ethan. What are you holding? Ethan pulled the letter against his chest. Nothing. Ethan. No Vincent froze. His son had never refused him so directly. Danielle stepped forward. Please don't make him give it to you. Vincent's eyes snapped toward her. You don't tell me how to speak to my son. Danielle went still. You're right. Silence. Then explain. Danielle looked at the children before answering. They write letters to Claire every Thursday. Vincent's face changed. Thursday, the day Claire died. How long? Months, Noah whispered. Vincent turned toward him. Months. While he had been sitting downstairs behind mahogany doors, convincing himself his children were adjusting, they had been gathering here in darkness. Without him. And you encouraged this? He asked Danielle. I found out recently. You should have stopped it. Danielle's eyes steadied. Why? The question was so simple that Vincent almost missed its force. Because they need to move forward. They're trying to. By writing letters to someone who is dead. Lily flinched. Danielle saw it. So did Vincent. His anger disappeared almost instantly, replaced by something worse. Shame. Then Lily spoke. We know Mommy's dead. Her voice was tiny. Vincent looked at his daughter. We're not stupid, Daddy. I never said you were. You don't like when we talk about her. Vincent's throat tightened. That isn't true. Ethan stared at the floor. Yes, it is. Vincent looked from one child to another. Noah's next words came barely above a whisper. We stopped telling you because you get sad. The room seemed to contract around him. Vincent had believed silence protected them. He had believed strength meant carrying pain privately. Instead, his children had learned to protect him from their grief. Lily released Danielle's hand and approached her father. She held out a piece of paper. On it were 4 figures. Claire, Ethan, Noah, Lily. Then, standing farther away, drawn in black crayon, was Vincent. Why am I over there? He asked. Lily looked up at him. Because you're always somewhere else. Vincent Moretti could command hundreds of men with a phone call. He could make enemies disappear. He could buy almost anything his children might ever need. But standing in that quiet room, staring at a child's drawing, he understood the one thing his power had failed to give them. Himself. Behind Lily, Danielle said nothing. She didn't need to. For once, Vincent Moretti was finally listening. Rebecca Sloan waited until breakfast to strike. Vincent had barely slept. He sat at the long dining table with untouched coffee before him, Lily's drawing folded inside his breast pocket. For the first time in 11 months, Claire's empty chair remained in his line of sight. He did not look away. Rebecca entered carrying a black folder. Mr. Moretti, we need to discuss Danielle Brooks. She placed it before him. Inside were security logs, photographs, and handwritten reports. Unauthorized access to private rooms. Violation of bedtime protocols. Unapproved discussions about Claire. Repeated interference with household discipline. Vincent turned the pages without expression. She has ignored nearly every boundary you established, Rebecca said, and your children are becoming emotionally dependent on her. His fingers stopped on a photograph. Danielle sat beneath a tree with Lily asleep against her shoulder, while Ethan and Noah played nearby. They trust her, Vincent said. Exactly. His eyes lifted. Rebecca lowered her voice. 6 nannies failed. 3 weeks after Miss Brooks arrives, your children tell her things they refuse to tell you. That should concern you. It did, but not for the reason Rebecca believed. Bring her in. Danielle entered 10 minutes later, wearing a cream blouse and dark skirt. Her hands were clasped tightly, but her eyes remained steady. Vincent pushed the folder toward her. Did you break these rules? Danielle looked at the first page. Yes. You allowed my children out of bed after 2 in the morning? Yes. You discussed their mother, after being specifically told not to? Yes. And you concealed it from me. A pause. Yes. Rebecca folded her arms. Vincent stared at Danielle. Why? Because they needed somewhere safe to grieve. They have therapists. They needed their father. The room went still. Rebecca stared at her. Vincent's expression hardened. Be careful. Danielle swallowed but did not retreat. They stopped talking about Claire because they were afraid it would hurt you. Vincent said nothing. I should have told you about Thursday nights, Danielle continued. I was wrong about that. But they weren't hiding something dangerous. They were writing letters to their mother because they didn't believe they were allowed to say her name anywhere else. Vincent stood. I am their father. I know. Then you should have come to me. I should have. Her immediate admission took some of the anger from him. Then Danielle looked directly into his eyes. But would you have listened? Silence. Rebecca stepped forward. Mr. Moretti, this is exactly the problem. She no longer understands her position. Danielle turned toward Vincent. If you believe I harmed your children, fire me. Rebecca went quiet. I won't fight you for this job, Danielle said. But please don't teach them that healing means forgetting someone they loved. A small voice came from the doorway. Is Miss Danielle leaving? Lily stood barefoot in the hall. Ethan and Noah were behind her. Vincent's face changed. Go upstairs, he said gently. Nobody moved. Ethan stepped forward. If she goes because we talked about Mommy, his fist tightened, then we won't talk about Mommy anymore. Vincent stared at his son. Noah reached for Lily's hand. 3 frightened children stood before the most powerful man they knew, waiting to discover whether telling the truth had been a mistake. Vincent looked at Rebecca's folder, then at Danielle, then at Claire's empty chair. For the first time, he understood that this decision was no longer about whether a nanny had broken his rules. It was about whether his children would ever trust him with their grief again. Vincent did not fire Danielle. Instead, he closed Rebecca's folder. Everyone out. Rebecca blinked. Mr. Moretti now. Danielle turned toward the door. Not you. She stopped. Vincent looked at his children. I need to talk to each of you. He started with Ethan. They sat alone in the library, Lily's drawing between them. Tell me what Danielle says about your mother. Ethan stared at his shoes. She says I'm allowed to be mad. Mad at whom? Mommy. Vincent froze. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. She said she'd always come back, but she didn't. For 11 months, Vincent had treated his son's anger as disobedience. Now he finally saw it for what it was. Heartbreak. Noah was next. Did Danielle tell you to keep Thursday night secret? Noah shook his head. Then why didn't you tell me? The boy looked toward the window. Because you stopped saying Mommy's name. Vincent's throat tightened. When we said it, Noah whispered. Your face changed. Lily gave him the simplest answer. Miss Danielle lets us miss Mommy. Vincent sat beside her on Claire's bed. Other people do too. Lily shook her head. They tell us to be happy. And Danielle, she says we can be happy and miss Mommy at the same time. That sentence followed Vincent downstairs. He went to the security room and reviewed the footage himself. He saw Danielle sitting outside Ethan's bedroom during a tantrum, helping Noah repair his airplane, waiting patiently while Lily brushed her own hair. Then he found Thursday night. The silent footage showed Danielle gathering the children's letters after they had fallen asleep. She placed each one carefully inside the wooden box. Then she sat alone on the carpet. For nearly a minute, she didn't move. Finally, she wiped tears from her cheeks. Vincent stopped the recording. Rebecca's reports had documented every rule Danielle broke. The cameras showed every room she entered. Neither could measure why she had done it. That evening, Vincent found Danielle packing. A small suitcase lay open on her bed. "I assumed you decided," she said. "I have." Her hand stopped. Vincent entered the room. "You were wrong not to tell me." "I know, but Rebecca was wrong too." Danielle looked up. "My children don't trust you because you manipulated them." He paused. "They trust you because you listened when I didn't." Danielle's eyes glistened. Vincent had apologized to almost no one in his adult life. In his world, admitting weakness invited people to use it. But his children had already paid the price for that belief. "You didn't replace Claire," he said quietly. "You gave them permission to remember her." A tear slipped down Danielle's cheek. Vincent glanced at the suitcase. "Unpack." Danielle stared at him. "You're staying." "Mr. Moretti, there will be rules." A faint smile touched her face. "I assumed so. One of them changes tonight." She waited. No more secret Thursdays. Danielle's smile disappeared. Vincent continued. "Because next Thursday," he looked toward the hallway where his children were waiting. "I'm coming too." The next morning, Vincent Moretti summoned every senior member of the household to the dining room. Rebecca arrived first. She looked composed again, dressed in gray with her silver hair pinned perfectly in place. The security chief stood near the windows. The chef, tutors, housekeepers, and 2 members of Vincent's personal staff gathered around the long table. Danielle entered last. She stopped when she saw everyone. Her expression tightened. Vincent stood at the head of the table. In front of him lay Rebecca's black folder. "Seat." Everyone obeyed except Danielle. "There's nowhere left, sir." Vincent looked toward an empty chair beside Lily's usual place. "Then sit there." Danielle hesitated. That chair had always been reserved for senior household staff. Rebecca noticed too. "Mr. Moretti." Vincent raised one hand. Silence returned immediately. He opened the folder. "For 3 weeks, reports have been written about Miss Brooks." Rebecca straightened. "Reports concerning serious violations." "Yes." Vincent lifted the first page. "Unauthorized conversations about my late wife." Another page. "Excessive emotional involvement." Another. "Failure to maintain professional distance." His eyes moved around the table. Then he closed the folder. "When did caring too much become misconduct in this house?" Nobody answered. Rebecca's face changed. "Sir, with respect, boundaries exist for a reason." "I agree." Vincent's voice remained calm. "That is why I spent last night reviewing every boundary Miss Brooks crossed." Danielle lowered her eyes. "And every boundary this household used as an excuse not to listen to 3 grieving children." Rebecca went pale. "I followed your instructions." Vincent looked at her. That was the uncomfortable truth. She had, which meant blame could not stop with her. "So who did everyone else?" he said. His gaze shifted toward the staff. "Including me." A faint movement passed through the room. Vincent Moretti did not admit mistakes publicly. Men had worked for him 15 years without hearing the words. Rebecca recovered first. "You cannot allow a nanny to override your authority because the children are attached to her." "This isn't about attachment." Vincent slid the folder across the polished table. "This is about judgment." Rebecca stiffened. "You interpreted compassion as manipulation. You documented kindness as insubordination. And you were prepared to remove the first person who got my children speaking honestly again. I was protecting this family." No, Vincent's eyes became cold. "You were protecting a system because it made the house easier to control." The room went silent. Danielle finally looked at him. Vincent turned toward Rebecca. "You will no longer supervise the children or anyone assigned to their care." Rebecca's lips parted. "Are you firing me?" "No." That surprised everyone. "You have served this family for 14 years. One failure does not erase 14 years of loyalty." His voice hardened. "But loyalty does not make you incapable of being wrong." Rebecca's eyes dropped. Vincent had chosen correction over humiliation. It was a kind of justice few people expected from him. Then he addressed the staff. From today forward, no employee in this house is to be treated as invisible. His gaze moved deliberately across the table. If someone who cleans a room, prepares a meal, or watches my children see something I don't, they speak. Nobody moved. And we listened. Danielle's eyes glistened. Vincent looked at her. You keep your position. She exhaled slowly. But there is one change. Danielle waited. You don't hide Thursday nights from me anymore. Her expression softened. I won't. Vincent nodded. Then Lily appeared in the doorway. Does that mean Miss Danielle stays? Vincent looked at his daughter. Yes. Lily ran across the room and wrapped both arms around Danielle. Noah followed. Then Ethan. Danielle sank to her knees beneath the weight of all three children, laughing through tears. Vincent watched from the head of the table. For once, nobody in the Moretti mansion was afraid of the silence. Because this silence did not come from fear. It came from a room full of people realizing that power had finally chosen humility. 3 months later, Thursday nights belonged to the Moretti family. Not to Vincent's business. Not to armed men waiting outside his study. Not to phone calls that once seemed important enough to interrupt anything. At 8:30 every Thursday evening, Vincent Moretti turned off his phone. Then he went upstairs. The small sitting room had changed. Claire's photograph still stood beneath the lamp. The wooden box still held the children's letters, but now 4 envelopes appeared each week instead of 3. Vincent wrote too. At first, he had hated it. What could a man write to the woman he had loved when every sentence reminded him that she would never answer? His first letter contained only 6 words. I don't know how to do this. Danielle had never asked what he meant. She simply placed the letter in the box. The next Thursday, Vincent wrote more. So, who did the children? Ethan had learned to swim without floaties. Noah finished his cardboard airplane and hung it above his bed. And Lily finally got her pancakes with Daddy. They burned the first batch. She ate them anyway. The mansion changed in smaller ways, too. Rebecca remained. For weeks, her conversations with Danielle were painfully formal. Then, one rainy afternoon, Danielle found her standing alone before Claire's portrait. I loved her too, Rebecca whispered. Danielle understood then. Rebecca's obsession with rules had not come only from arrogance. It had come from grief hardened into control. Danielle did not excuse what Rebecca had done, but she gave her room to become better. Sometimes dignity meant defending yourself. Sometimes it meant allowing another person to correct themselves without destroying them. One evening, Vincent entered the dining room and stopped. Claire's chair was still there. For months, it had been an altar to absence. Now a white rose rested on the plate. Lily pointed toward the chair beside her. Daddy, Vincent sat. Ethan argued about vegetables. Noah told an unnecessarily long story about an insect he had found outside. Lily laughed, so hard milk came through her nose. Danielle covered her mouth, trying not to laugh. She failed. Vincent looked around the table. This was what he had nearly lost while believing that providing a house was the same as being present inside it. His eyes settled on Danielle. She noticed. What? Vincent shook his head. Nothing. But it wasn't nothing. He remembered coming home early. He remembered standing outside that door, convinced he was about to discover that an employee had crossed a line. He had discovered something else instead. A woman he had hired to care for his children had been protecting something no bodyguard could protect. Their right to grieve without shame. Their right to remember their mother. Their right to love the parent they had lost without feeling responsible for the pain of the parent who remained. Danielle had never tried to become Claire. That was precisely why the children trusted her. She had not filled an empty chair. She had taught them they did not need to remove it before making room for tomorrow. Later that night, Vincent found Ethan, Noah, and Lily asleep together on the sitting room carpet. Danielle was covering them with blankets. Vincent quietly helped her. Neither spoke until the last child was tucked in. Then Vincent looked at Claire's photograph. I thought protecting them meant making sure nothing could hurt them. Danielle's eyes were gentle. You can't promise children they'll never hurt. What can you promise? That they won't have to hurt alone. Vincent looked at his sleeping children. For once, he had no answer. He didn't need one. Outside, rain whispered against the windows. Inside, the most feared man in the city sat on the floor beside his children. Not as a boss, not as a protector, just as their father. And Danielle smiled quietly as Lily reached for his hand in her sleep. Vincent had spent his life believing strength meant never letting anyone see where you could be wounded. His children taught him differently. Danielle helped him understand it. Because sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is stay when someone else is hurting. And in a house once ruled by silence, love finally had permission to speak.